So this afternoon, I have the privilege of talking with you about a subject that's very close to my heart, which is the world as an opportunity to serve. The world as an opportunity to serve. So this month marks 3 years since I joined Heifer International as President and CEO, and preparing my remarks for this presentation has given me an opportunity to reflect on the importance of service. So I stand before you today as the leader of an organization whose service to the world has changed the lives of about 21 million people. But I also stand before you as a father, well aware, I have 4, well aware of the perils that my children, your children, will face in their lifetimes. I stand before you today because the state of the world, our children and grandchildren will inherit, rests in very real ways in your schools and classrooms. So let's turn our attention to the world because it desperately needs our attention. 1 year ago, last October, the United Nations announced that our fragile and beautiful Earth is now the home for 7 billion people. That's with a B. Over the next 30 years, between 2 and 3 more billion people will be joining us. So what are the implications for our global food system and for us, for each one of us individually, as we look to 9 billion people together in 2050? So that's the year when the students in your classrooms today will be in their 40s and 50s with their own children inheriting the choices and actions they make today. The global food system and industry is struggling. Food prices peaked in 2008 and again in 2010, sparking riots and export bans, land grabs, very steep oil prices, biofuel developments, epic financial meltdowns, food production and distribution failures, water scarcity converging and reshaping our world in the very face of poverty and hunger. All these forces are also contributing to geopolitical disruptions such as the Arab Spring and the civil war in Syria, political protests from Turkey to Brazil, and the recent spike in malnutrition and poverty around the world. So against this volatile, unpredictable backdrop is the specter of climate change. The uncertainty that global warming engenders is at best frightening and at worst unthinkable. 9 billion people in 2050. So we're going to need more food. Sources estimate 70% more today. So how do we do that? In 2050, many of us will no longer be here to guide our students of today. That makes today a perfect day to teach our change makers of tomorrow how to create a more just and sustainable world. At Heifer International, we believe we have an approach that actually can help. So very briefly, Heifer International is a nonprofit, non-governmental organization with very expansive experience in agricultural development and the strong inclusion of livestock in the development process. We've been working on the plagues of rural poverty and hunger for 70 years. Much progress has been achieved, however, there's a lot more to do. So I'm going to give you some statistics here to give you a sense of scale. Today, there are more than 600 million smallholder and poor farmers in the world. These smallholder farmers, meaning less than 5 acres or so, produce up to 70% of the developing world's food. Okay? 600 million farmers, they produce 70% of the world's food that's eaten every day, and most of them are women. About 80% of these smallholder farmers are women. And so these are astonishing numbers that we have to think about strategically. At Heifer, we believe we must rapidly increase their productivity, the productivity of smallholder farmers, in order to achieve the necessary scale to feed the world and cool the planet. We work in about 40 plus countries, and we work with these smallholder farmers on a daily basis. So consider the conditions and situations we initially find in these communities where Heifer works. Hopelessness, isolation, low self-esteem, low or no productivity, exploitation, rampant illiteracy, oppressed women, low or no business sense, very poor educational opportunities, seasonal hunger, extreme poverty, awful hygiene, non-existent health care, appalling child and maternal mortality, chronic malnutrition, and more. Being poor really sucks. So in these communities, you won't find people with an understanding of markets or incentives. These people, though clever, hardworking, and actually very industrious, live hand to mouth every day. So our task is to find ways to support these families so they can feed themselves and help feed the world. We know they can do it, but can it be done on a scale to have real impact? So here's the overarching concept of what Heifer International does. We connect the unconnected. This is simply organizing farmers, connecting them to one another, to supplies and tools, and then connecting them to markets. It all begins with community development or building what we call social capital. The mobilization of 600 million plus smallholder farmers will not happen in our experience if the communities of these smallholder farmers are not engaged in a journey of personal transformation as individuals, families, villages, and communities. So for success to be solid, there needs to be cohesion, harmony that helps connect and heal the psychological and social effects of generations of poverty and hunger. So how do we do that? We use very intentional values-based training that precedes all animal or commodity input, the Heifer cornerstones. And they're right here. So these are the 12 cornerstones that we've developed over decades of work. One of our cornerstones is education and training. As you know, success is virtually impossible without apt and inclusive education. We prepare every project participant over months with training so that he or she can succeed. Notice that I emphasize the word she. We all know that education is one of the most critical factors for empowerment, especially for women. Offering girls basic education is one of the ways of ensuring this. It provides opportunities for women and girls to make genuine choices over the kinds of lives they wish to lead. The mere fact that girls could face a happier and healthier future should be reason enough for supporting girls' education. And by promoting girls' education, we see also important benefits to society as a whole. An educated woman has the abilities, the information, and the self-assurance to be a better parent, a community member, a worker, and a citizen. An educated woman is, for example, likely to marry at a later age, have fewer children. Cross-country studies show that an extra year, just one extra year of schooling for girls reduces fertility rates by 5 to 10%. And the children of an educated mother are more likely to survive. In India, for example, the infant mortality rate of babies whose mother received primary education is half that of children whose mothers are illiterate. So these facts don't lie. And at Heifer, we're serious about increasing educational opportunities for women and feel that this is part of the solution. So I'd like to show you a clip of a documentary about the remarkable journey of the women, of a community of women we worked with in Nepal. So let's run the Stones video.
Reaching across century-old caste boundaries, a community organizer named Sita Pudel and some women from her community came to the lower caste village of Belsi in southern Nepal as part of a remarkable effort to end poverty by empowering poor, illiterate women.
हाम्रो पहिला चाहिँ सीता म्याडमहरु आउँदैन कस्तो फोर थियो त्यो नाक छोपेर यस्तो गरेर आउनी देखाउनु यस्तो पुरा यस्तो गरेर यस्तो साडी उचालेर यस्तो गरेर आको गनाएर
From their experience in other countries, heifer field workers had discovered that just giving animals wasn't enough. So they began to consider another idea, combining the donation of animals with training, and giving that training to small groups of women who could then help their entire community.
पहिला जस्तै हामी यो अब के समूह गठन नहुँदैसम्म हामी एकअर्कामा बोल्न पनि त्यति साह्रै हुन्थेन हामी समूहमा बसिसकेपछि हामीले एकअर्कामा आफ्नो घरमा उब्जेको सामानहरु बाडी चुडी भोग्दा भन्ने जस्तै बाडी चुडी खान लाग्यो अनि हामी काम गर्दाखेरि संयुक्त रूपमा हामीले काम गर्छौं हामी सबै मिलेर पहिला एकै गर्न पर्थ्यो भने अहिले संयुक्त मिलेर गरेपछि एकदम राम्रो लाग्छ मैले त अब धेरै पढे छैन 5 6 7 सम्म पढेको हैन अनि त्यो पछाडि हामीले केही नि जाने थिएनौँ। अब नजान्दाखेरि अब यहाँको दिदीबहिनीहरूले नि अलिअलि अक्षर चिन्न पर्यो। हामी यताउति जाँदाखेरि नि झुक्किने, बोर्ड हेर्न नजान्ने।
तपाईँहरू योभन्दा अगाडि पढ्न लेख्न जान्नुहुन्थ्यो अरे? नाम लेख्न पनि जाने थिएन।
हामी कुनै ठाउँमा अब टाढा जानु पर्यो भने गाडीमा जानु पर्यो होइन। अब जान्थ्यो त हामीले गाडी कहाँ जाने हो सोध्नु पर्यो। साहु जानु छ भने त साहु जाने गाडी हो भन्नु पऱ्यो नि हामीले होइन। त्यो भन्दाखेरि अनि यो कहाँ जाने गाडी भन्ने नि चिन्यौँ र कति नम्बर गाडी भनेर पनि चिन्यौँ क्या हामीले। र त्यतिसम्म अब गाडीको नम्बर चिन्नु सक्ने, आफ्नो नाम लेख्न सक्ने, आफ्नो इन्डा बाँसु कि आफ्नो महिला भनेर अब चिनाउनु सक्ने भयौँ। त्यति चाहिँ नि लेख्न सक्ने भएछौँ।
पहिला मैले माइतमा हुँदाखेरि नि मेरो हजुरबा हजुरआमाले के भन्नुभयो भने छोरीलाई पढाएर काम छैन भनेर मलाई स्कुल जान दिनु भएन। मेरो भाइलाई चाहिँ बोर्डिङ स्कुलमा पहिला पनि पुलचोक बोर्डिङ स्कुलमा गाडी घरमै आउँथ्यो लिनलाई। अनि गाडीमा पठाउनु भयो, मैले पढ्न पाइनँ।
ल उहाँलाई धन्यवाद दिउँ है, तालिबान मारेर।
सुदीपलाई मात्रै भर्ना गरेको थियो। अनि 1 वर्ष पढ्यो सुदीपले बोर्डिङ। अनि त्यसपछि मेरो आय आर्जन भन्ने त्यति बेला केही पनि थिएन कि आय आर्जन गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने हुने भावनै थिएन। अब जानियो पनि थिएन, त्यति मेसो थिएन। आय आर्जन अलिकति बढाउन जानियो बाख्रा पाठाबाट। अनि त्यसपछि 1 वर्ष स्कुलमा लग्यो दुइटैलाई फेरि। अङ्ग्रेजीको जमाना अब जति गाह्रो भयो नि आय आर्जन कसरी हुन्छ, कसरी बढाउँ, बरु छोरछोरी प्राइभेट स्कुलमा अङ्ग्रेजी अलि जान्ने हुन्थ्यो कि प्राइभेट स्कुलमा। घर परिवारमा त्यस्तो मतलब यो काम यसले गर्ने, यसले मात्रै गर्ने हो भने जस्तो त्यो भावनै त्यस्तो थियो नि त। अहिले चाहिँ बाँडीचुँडी सबै अब सानोले सक्ने काम सानोले, ठुलोले सक्ने काम ठुलोले। अब पहिला त सुरुमा त मेरै अवस्था भन्दाखेरि अब भित्र खाना पकाउने यताउता सबै गरेर पनि गोठको पनि सबै आफैले गर्नु पर्थ्यो कि। त्यो मेरै काम हो, त्यो मेरै जसरी नि मैले भ्याउनै पर्थ्यो क्या। अहिले चाहिँ त्यस्तो अब यस्तो ठाउँ हिँड्न पऱ्यो, आज नगई नहुने भयो भनेपछि सर्लक्क छोडेर जाऊ भन्नुहुन्छ। अब त्यो चाहिँ सबै सम्हाल्नुहुन्छ। जसरी मैले गर्छु नि त्यसरी नै उहाँले पनि गर्छ।
यति गते भनेदेखि 22 गते भनेर त्यो गते तोकेको दिनदेखि नै एकदम खुसी लाग्यो। हामीले पनि अब आफूले उपहार पायौँ, दिन पाएका थिएनौँ, हामीले दिने दिन पनि आइपुगेछ है भनेर अति खुसी लाग्यो।
एकदम रमाइलो लाग्यो नि। अब भनौँ न उपहार पाउँदा त नरमाइलो मान्ने त कुरै भएन है।
पहिला ममा यस्तो थियो कि म यो कुनैलाई दिन्न, यो बरु सरेरै जाओस्, बरु फालिदिन्छु यसलाई, त्यस्तो लाग्थ्यो भनेदेखि। अहिले चाहिँ केही थोक छ भनेदेखि थोरै भए पनि एक दाना भए पनि बरु साथीलाई दिउँ जस्तो लाग्छ। ममा भएको चाहिँ परिवर्तन, जस्तो कि म र मेरो भन्ने भावना पुरै घटेर ममा चाहिँ हामी र हाम्रो भावना पालन चाहिँ भइसकेको छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई।
राम्रोसँग दिनुभयो, हामीले पनि एकदम खुसी साथले। अब यसलाई हामी केही यो उपहारबाट हामी अब पाठीहरू धेरै जन्माएर हामीले पनि अरूलाई दिन।
भनौँ न एउटा चाहिँ अब मैनबत्तीको त्यो मुनि चाहिँ अँध्यारो भाग हुन्छ नि, त्यस्तो अँध्यारो भागमा थियौँ भने अहिले चाहिँ त्यो मैनबत्तीको उज्यालो भागमा हामी पुगे जस्तो पनि हामीलाई फिल हुन्छ। एकदम खुसी लाग्छ होइन त रुपा दिदी?
एकदम खुसी।
So I just came back from Nepal in April and went there with my board of directors, and we visited this village in Chetwan, Bilsi. And they are now on their 13th cycle of passing on the gift. With goats, of course, it's a little quicker. You can start every 10 months or so, you can pass on the gifts. We help, as you saw this here, we help families and villages learn and experience a new way of thinking and connecting and living. We do this by reinforcing the power of leadership and the need for accountability. I don't know if you picked it up in the vocabulary on how they hold each other accountable and actually have what most of you would recognize a very strategic planning process on setting goals and actually evaluating every 3 months what they're going to do next, which is part of the 12 cornerstones. So we aspire to provide those we serve with the hope that an end in hunger and poverty is possible. So we move them from hopelessness to hopefulness. And I think we all deserve this dignity of being able to provide the basic needs of our family. So once this transformation has clearly been ignited, and it takes time and months of education and training with very frequent reviews over the years. And when I say it takes time, given the amount of time and training that's required, it's also expensive. It actually takes money to pay for the trainers. And a lot of donors don't like to do that. They prefer, you're going to give a cow, you're going to give a goat. I'll pay for the goat, I'll pay for the cow. And we raise quite a lot of money to actually do the training, which is substantially more important because fundamentally you want about self-reliance rather than just providing them with assets. So once all this training has taken place, then the physical transfer of assets actually occurs. So in our case, as you know, this is goats and heifers and poultry and swine and llamas, you name it. We have 33 different distinct species that we deal with all over the world based on what the community prefers to work with. So then we prepare them to accept the animals, and then we collaborate on how to build a value chain. So what do I mean by value chains? It comes back to the idea of connecting the unconnected. There's little question in our minds that market-based solutions are essential to solving poverty and hunger. Philanthropy alone will never solve the problem. There is simply not enough money in the world to do that. Money needs to be generated at the community level through business. So connecting farmers to markets is the only sustainable, scalable way to reach the 2 billion who are hungry today, and then the coming 2 billion plus who will join us on planet Earth over the next 30 years. Our children's children and grandchildren, Heifer's work, what we do exceedingly well is to organize farmers into producer groups and cooperatives, provide them with training and inputs like seeds, fertilizer, animals, and then connect them to markets where they get a fair price for their products. So we had, through the Gates Foundation, a very substantial project in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. And we did the training, and we saw transformed lives after working with them in the dairy value chain. So there's a very short 2.5-minute video here that I'd like to show you. So every time I see this video, I imagine what Dan West, the founder of Heifer International, would think. He was a dairy farmer out of Indiana. And he saw the world as his opportunity to serve. Dan was a volunteer relief worker and Church of the Brethren member. And during the Spanish Civil War, he was assigned to a relief kitchen serving orphans and refugees. So day after day, Dan handed out cups of powdered milk to the young, the homeless, the destitute. And day after day, there was never enough milk for all the children and the families in the ration line. And Dan West summed up the situation with a legendary observation. He said, "These people don't need a cup, they need a cow." And that's how the idea of Heifer International was born back in 1944. Dan West is a shining example of a human being who saw the world as an opportunity to serve, and it's his legacy that has enabled 4 million plus families to care for themselves within the framework of a more sustainable food system. So how do we continue that legacy? So who can inspire that sense of global mindedness, the understanding that we're all connected, and that natural drive to serve others in today's generation of students? And it's clearly you. You can. All of you working with students today can, as educators and administrators and civil society leaders, you are the change makers. You are uniquely positioned to prepare our nation's young people to excel and contribute as responsible global citizens in this very fast-changing, interconnected world of ours. So as we discussed this afternoon, the challenges facing humanity and our fragile planet are complex, daunting. They will not go away without action, but these problems offer unprecedented opportunities for individuals and collective solutions. So to create these solutions, young people need academic competence, motivation, discipline, a global outlook, and a bias towards service. You have the privilege, and I believe the responsibility, to cultivate these characteristics in the students you serve every day. As independent schools, you all have core components of service inherent in your missions. So I urge you to push your imagination and think of service as a global opportunity. Instill in your students the idea of serving humanity. At Heifer International, we work with hundreds of schools across the country to help young people understand how their decisions, their behavior, and how they treat others are shaping the future of the world. Here in Atlanta, we've had the privilege of working with a Galloway school, and I believe there's some representatives here. We've had the privilege of working with Galloway for the past 3 years, working with a great deal of pride and hope as every child there, every parent, and every teacher has begun the transformation to a greater global mindedness. So many of you have used your classroom as a building block for service. It is our hope that even more of you will leave today on a mission to use your classroom to open your children's mind to the world as an opportunity to serve. So as you know, when you reach the limitless hearts and minds of your students, you also reach their parents. You motivate yourself. There is no way we can wait for tomorrow to ignite this change. The time is really now. At Heifer, we believe in the power of global education. In fact, it is so important that we have dedicated much time and effort to creating high-quality educational and service learning programs for schools just like yours. One of our most popular programs, which many of you I think know, is Read to Feed. It taps into the joy of reading books while raising money to further our mission. So allow me to share our Read to Feed program. This is the piece of advertising that we put in here. And additional material can be gathered with my colleagues at the back there. Yeah, they're there. And I also encourage you to visit the Read to Feed website, where our talented educators, we have a series of educators on our staff, have created free curriculum to use in your classrooms to open the mind of your students. And hopefully you'll lead them down this pathway of viewing the world as an opportunity to serve. So let's have the Read to Feed video.
I used to get kind of discouraged when I heard about all the bad things that were going on in the world. People were always talking about families that were poor, hungry, and sick, and how it was getting worse all the time. It almost felt hopeless, like there was nothing they could do. But what if something could change everything? What if a poor, hungry family got a cow and learned how to use it? A cow can do a lot to help. A cow can provide milk and meat, which the family can eat and drink to become healthier and stronger. It can pull a plow, which makes it easier to prepare a field to grow even more food. Cows also make manure, an important fertilizer that helps plants grow. If the family had extra milk, meat, manure, or crops, they could sell it for money. That would allow them to send their kids to school or even to build a better house. Oh, and a cow can have baby cows, which they can pass on to another family in need. It's the gift that keeps on giving. You know, cows aren't for everyone. Some people need chickens for their nutritious eggs. Or alpacas, which provide warm wool. The most amazing thing about all of this is that I have the power to help. You do too. My teacher told me about Heifer International, an organization that gives families the animals and training they need to lift themselves out of poverty. We can help by doing a Read to Feed program. With Read to Feed, we do a few simple things. First, we ask our friends and family to sponsor us for each book, or each page, or each hour that we read. Then, we read like crazy. We keep track of how much we've read, so we can tell our sponsors exactly what we've done. We also learn a lot more about the world, its problems, and how animals and people can help each other to solve them. At the end, we collect the money from our sponsors, and we choose animals or other items from Heifer's gift catalog to give to families who need them. It feels great to know that we've changed a family's life forever. When I think about all the people who will be helped when that family passes on the gift, I feel so proud and hopeful. My class's goal is to raise enough money for a cow. What will your goal be?
So let me end my talk by thanking Dr. Robinson for inviting me to join you this afternoon, and by thanking each one of you for the important work that you do. We need your passion, we need your talents, we need your energy to ignite the dreams and aspirations of all the young people you work with, and to help them pursue interests so that we can make our world a better place. Thank you very much.